Where is home to you? On the surface, this might seem like a very simple question, one that most of us can answer in a simple word. But our answers hold a lot more information than just a geographical location. They provide us with insight into someone's personal identity, the community they align with, the culture that they hold close. But much more importantly, our answers to this are rooted in our sense of belonging. Belonging is how we make sense of the world in relation to others and how we connect. So if you tell me Rotterdam, I might make a quick assumption and judgment and assume that you prefer a direct, no-nonsense way of communication and that you appreciate a gezellig culture. Now, these quick assumptions and judgments help us make sense of the world very quickly. When we hear Rotterdam, we're not merely registering a location. We're trying to pull together any information that we have to make sense of the person standing in front of us. This is because our brains are wired for efficiency. We rely on these mental shortcuts, or what psychologists call heuristics, to make sense of our rapidly changing world. The one that comes into play when we're trying to make sense of the person standing in front of us is called the representativeness heuristic. It means that we're making judgments and assumptions based on three things: familiar categories, past experiences, and stereotypes. So essentially, we're trying to pull together information from these three things to categorize the person in front of us to our in-group or out-group. Now, this worked really well historically. It was literally necessary for our survival. We had to figure out if you were an ally or a threat, if I could share my resources with you, or if you were going to eat me. Now, you might argue that these heuristics and shortcuts are still necessary for navigating life today, in navigating the social relationships we have and structure. And whilst that is true to an extent, I think we should start to question if they're capturing the nuances of our world today that is characterized by constant digital interconnectedness, information overload, and globalization. I want to speak to you as someone today who's been shaped by globalization to discuss with you how these heuristics or mental shortcuts are limiting our understanding of belonging in today's world. I was born in Finland, both my parents are from there, but I spent most of my life growing up in Hong Kong, Italy, and New Mexico. Now I've been in the Netherlands for 3 years. As a third culture kid, my childhood was defined by a lot of movement, and when I was asked the question, where is home? I've never been fully convinced of the answer that I've provided. In this way, I think third culture kids provide a minuscule example of what is happening in the world at large with interconnectedness. Today, I want to speak to you through that lens. Now, firstly, to better understand how these mental shortcuts or heuristics are limiting our understanding of belonging in a globalized world, we need to better understand in-group and out-group dynamics. How do we define who belongs and who doesn't? An in-group consists of a group of individuals who share common characteristics, whether that be nationality, religion, political identity, or any other common characteristic. More often than not, in-group members tend to treat each other preferentially, viewing each other better than others, reinforcing a sense of belonging. But how do we treat outsiders? Unfortunately, more often than not, they're seen as homogeneous and stereotyped. This is a pitfall of the representativeness heuristic known as the homogeneity bias. Now, in-group and out-group dynamics have long had a very intricate relationship with geographical place. Boundaries between regions, nations, cities have long helped us determine who belongs to us and who belongs to them. Geography has long played a central role in helping us subconsciously categorize people into us and them. This is where geographical place takes on a new significance. Philosopher Paul Tillich reflected on this by saying, "To be means to have space. Every being strives to provide and preserve a space for itself." He went on to argue that without a physical space to call home, a city, a country, one cannot truly exist. So, if belonging is deeply tied to geographical place, and that also helps us determine an in-group that reinforces belonging, what happens when that space is constantly shifting? What happens if we no longer have a fixed in-group or out-group? What happens when the answer to where is home becomes complex or even elusive? In my experience, that looked like a lot of goodbyes to good friends, to places that I really valued, but it also meant that when I returned to Finland, I never felt like I was Finnish enough to relate to the people from there, but I wasn't really from anywhere else either. This could be described as an anomaly to the representativeness heuristic. However, this is no longer just relevant to third culture kids. As we all start to move between boundaries between cultures on online digital platforms, global conversations, hybrid workplaces, boundaries between us and them are becoming increasingly blurry. Belonging is no longer about where we are. It's about how we relate to a world that is constantly evolving and overlapping. This brings us to a new kind of landscape in today's world. Sociologist Marc Auger calls this non-space. Non-space, unlike traditional geographical places, are not characterized by history, culture, or the personal identities of the people who inhabit them. Instead, they're characterized by movement, not settling. In this way, non-spaces can be described as liminal spaces, thresholds between destinations meant to be passed through, not for permanence. The word liminal comes from the Latin word limen, meaning threshold or doorway, describing the feeling of not really being there nor there. Now, I'm sure all of you have been in a non-place before, whether that be a hotel, airport, train, a foreign city in which you feel more like an observer than a resident in. For third culture kids, non-places are a very integral part of the way they grow up in, and they no longer serve as just a symbol of transition, but they almost hold familiarity and comfort because they've been used to this movement throughout their lives. As we become more interconnected, more and more of us are starting to spend an increasing amount of time in these liminal spaces. So where does that leave us? Where is home? A non-place? That literally directly lacks everything that a geographical place provides us with. An in-group, a feeling of belonging, the emotional and historical depth that the word home holds for us. As we become more interconnected, we all start to grow this global consciousness of being part of something that is wider than ourselves, a global community. Now, whilst this global consciousness holds potential for connection, it holds challenges as well. We start to feel more disconnected from the places that we call home. As globalization continues to shape our world today, finding belonging in the in-between, between local and global, can lead to feelings of alienation and confusion. The world that we inhabit is no longer as it once was today. It's far more complex than that. It's no longer about belonging to one in-group, one rooted place. It's about figuring out how we relate to a world that is constantly evolving and moving. But how are we supposed to feel grounded in a place where space itself is no longer stable? I think it's found in the in-between. Non-places, whilst they don't provide the same memory and tradition that geographical places do, they serve as a reminder that belonging is not about permanence, it's about presence. It's about the connections that we make, the conversations that we have, the communities that we build, and the experiences that we share together. Moreover, boundaries are more blurry than ever, the ones that once helped us categorize us into us versus them. And this is incredibly liberating. Instead of feeling the uncertainty and disorientation that comes from the fluidity of belonging, we should start to embrace the freedom that it provides us with. The freedom to reconstruct our own stories, to reimagine who we are, and to build a sense of home wherever we are. Once we stop searching for belonging in a fixed place, we can start to recognize it in the present. As we start to embrace change, interconnectedness, diversity, we can start to recognize that home is not something we're searching for. It's something that we're creating together right now. Thank you.